I'll be honest, this review is going to be on the shorter side, but trust me, that's actually a compliment to this convention. Which convention, you ask? Well, the one that happened during the third week of January on the coast of the United States. Oh, that actually doesn't narrow it down either, does it? Well, of the two cons that happened at the same time on opposite sides of the US, I decided to stay on this side of the country and visit Further Confusion in San Jose, California. This was a pretty special con for me, mainly because it was my first time attending FC, so it was fun being brand new to a con again. Though, while I was brand new to the con itself, the area where the con was located was a place I was definitely not new to. You see, I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I would go to San Jose all the time for all sorts of activities with my friends and family. So to go back to a place I'm so familiar with dressed as this, threw me for a couple of loops while I was there. But that personal side is not why you're here. You're here to get my thoughts on how FC went this year, and like I said, this con was super easy for me to review. If I were to sum it up into one thesis statement, Further Confusion was one of the most manageable cons I've ever been to, where I was never bored, but never overwhelmed to the point of not knowing what to do next. Let me explain. Also, yes, we're in a new chair today. It was a bit of an impulse buy after learning my new couch was going to be delayed getting delivered again, so now I actually have somewhere to sit that's not the kitchen counter. We'll see how long it lasts for videos. I kind of like it, but anyways, where were we? That's right, FC 2025, a con that I just described as one of the most manageable cons that I've been to. Let's break that down a little bit. I've gone to a bunch of cons now, and when I think about how manageable I thought a con was, I pay attention to how I feel after the con is over. How my energy levels are after 3 or 4 days of being a funny animal are typically good indicators of how well I manage those energy levels throughout the con itself. For example, if I'm straight up gassed after a con, both physically and emotionally, then I know I had a good time, but was probably pulled in too many directions socially and need some time to recover. I usually get like this after cons like FWA and AC, where there are just so many things to do with so many people that I want to do them with. On that Monday after the con, I honestly don't want to talk to anyone anymore. I just can't think straight socially. But the opposite is true as well. I've been to some cons where I left thinking there was more that I could have done to see and meet other people, and I wish I had an extra day or two to hang out with friends for just a couple more hours. So taking all of that into account, when I got back from FC and evaluated how I felt, the word I would describe was satisfied. After I was done with Further Confusion, I felt like I did pretty much everything I wanted to do. I saw everyone that I wanted to see, achieved the goal that I set of every con of meeting some new friends, and even tried some new things that I don't get a chance to do at every con as well. And that was all possible due to what I believe is FC's greatest feature, its size. This year, FC printed 6,499 badges, which in the grand scheme of furry conventions puts it in the medium-large category of cons. And for me, that's the sweet spot for furry conventions when it comes to keeping things manageable, for a couple of different reasons. For starters, 6,500 people is not a small number. That was enough to keep both main hotels and the convention center full during peak hours, which is great because that meant the opportunities to see and meet new people were always available to you if that was something that you were looking for. FC also did a good job of keeping that many people busy, as there was an extensive amount of programming that happened throughout the day, meaning if you ever just needed something to pass the time with, there was always a few panels or meetups for you to poke your head into. That being said, while that number is a lot, I don't want to discount that. When it comes to some of the other furry conventions that I've been to, it's a lot more manageable than you might think, especially in a space like FC's con floor. The cool thing about FC is that there are 2 main hotels that flank the San Jose Convention Center, which gives everyone a bunch of room to roam around both inside and outside. Given that space, along with the fact that the peak attendance number was still around half of some of those mega cons, it meant that finding and meeting new people to hang out with was pretty easy. One of the most frustrating things about cons at the top of the attendance list is that they can get so busy that you might see someone you want to hang out with one time randomly in passing and then never see them again. Or you may want to plan something with someone, but it may take them 30 to 45 minutes just to get to your meeting point due to things like elevators or just the con space being so spread out. None of that was an issue at FC. You could meet new people, but see them again after the first time. And on top of that, you could really focus on enjoying your time at the con as much as you wanted to, because you really didn't have to think about any of the other considerations to keep you going at a con as well. There were plenty of places to get food that were within walking distance, so grabbing lunch or dinner with friends was super straightforward. If you wanted to leave the con space to go adventure outside, the light rail had to stop right in front of the convention center, which also made it super convenient for those who flew in and out of the San Jose airport for the con. And just that general part of San Jose is pretty nice, so I felt quite safe walking around outside by myself, even at night, which is just nice not to have to worry about if you're someone like me who didn't get a room in one of the main hotels, which more on that later. But the bottom line is that FC made having fun at a furry convention just easy. This may sound kind of weird, but that's not the case for every con. You could definitely have a lot of fun, but sometimes that fun takes a lot of effort in coordinating when and where you want to have it. And that can be a big part of cons that are much bigger or even much smaller than FC. But that was one of my favorite things about FC. You really didn't have to worry about how you were going to have your fun. The size and layout just meant that you could enjoy yourself pretty easily. And that's one of, if not the highest compliments that I can give to any furry convention that I've been to. Now, no furry convention is perfect, and FC is no exception. And while I had an excellent time, there were some things that I wish would have gone a little differently during my time there. Though I do want to start with the time before the con even began, because as I alluded to earlier, I was not in one of the main hotels for FC. And while the hotel I ended up in was pretty nice, having to scramble to find friends with an open room as close to the con as I did was not a fun experience. And I want to be clear, I don't have a problem with FC's lottery system specifically. At this point, that's one of the most fair ways to distribute the limited amount of rooms that they have at a con. I was more frustrated with how close in time to the actual start date of the con that they ran those lotteries. It's interesting, there was a lot of furries giving MFF a lot of hate for how long they were waiting to release the results of their room lottery. Yet FC was cutting it just as close and people weren't nearly making as much of an uproar about it. Now I get that there are different cons with different attendees, but still, the more advanced notice to plan for accommodations, the better. I was also a bit sad there was no fursuit parade, but I'm not going to knock too many points off of FC for that. There was a very specific reason why there wasn't one this year, and I'm just going to hope that they bring that back in future years. Also, along those same lines, I heard a lot of mixed reviews about the security checkpoints that they had at the entrances to the convention center, and if I'm honest, I really don't have much to say about those. Sure, it caused a couple of bottlenecks, but I think most people went through them pretty quickly as they figured them out throughout their time at the con, and the overall security presence around the convention center didn't bother me at all either. Honestly, if anything, it made a lot of sense for them to be there with the other events happening in and around the convention center at the same time. And then there's a bunch of other small things that I could nitpick, like the party floor being a great idea in theory, but it got cramped and stuffy on the first day it was open, so I had to wait until Sunday for it to actually be a fun experience to walk through. And other small things like line management, like how we had to wait in an entire separate line to get a wristband for the night market, separate from when we originally registered for the con itself. I feel like that could have been combined a little bit, but again, this is really small nitpicks here. If anything, all the issues, if you could even call them that I had at FC were not specific to the con at all and are all fixable. So there's no need to berate the con staff for the individual frustrations that I ran into. There's going to be room for improvement at every convention. So that leads us to the conclusion of this review, and I'm sure you've caught on by now, but FC was a great convention to attend. Not only did I personally have a lot of fun with my friends, both old and new, but the convention itself and the environment that the convention was in allowed me to do so pretty easily, without ever feeling like I was bored or had to conjure something to do, but also without feeling too overwhelmed and having to pick and choose my social activities. So yeah, for me, it's a pretty easy recommendation for anyone, but especially if you're on the West Coast or the western half of the United States. It's the biggest one that we have out here, and it's nice not having to travel across 2 or 3 time zones to go to a larger convention. But either way, you'll get a little bit of everything if you do choose to go, but compared to some of the mega huge cons, the activity level, the busyness, and the overall fun that you'll have at further confusion will be a lot more manageable. Something that even experienced con goers will find quite refreshing. Alright, that's it. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already for more videos like this. Thanks for doing so. I'll catch you in the next one, but until then, stay wild out there. Peace.